by Coach Brown. First day of practice, how did it go?
Yeah, I thought the guys had good energy. I think a lot of credit to our strength and conditioning staff. Coach Jordan Diaz and his crew. We came in really at full strength. A lot of teams across the country don't. So I thought we were able to handle it, handle the heat, handle the amount of running. And so really, really proud of them. I think our guys did a good job. We gave them about 4 days off. I thought they did a good job being hydrated and eating well leading into it. So like day one in 100-degree heat, we didn't have any cramps. So I think that's a positive. I think that speaks well to really all our performance staff, strength conditioning, nutrition, and athletic training. And then from a football perspective, our guys know what to do, but it's not reality. We're playing flag football basically right now. And so our guys know what to do from an execution standpoint. Can we do it when you bring the physicality piece, because you don't have that when you're just in helmets and spiders.
A lot of enthusiasm on that first day?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the guys they should be, right? I think you got to be careful, like from a coaching perspective, of overwhelming them in the summer, because I think some people in some places across the country grind them so much during the summer the guys aren't excited about fall camp, because you can get into that mode where, because you're paying them now and different things, where June and July is so intense that there's not a difference. So what we really tried to do over the course of our summer is we worked hard. We did a lot of football within the rules, but we got them in shape, but we didn't do too much. They had some time where they can enjoy their summer. And so when they got to football, when it's time, the reason they're here is to play football, and we get to that point and they're excited to do it.
First few games of the year, during the day, it's going to be really hot, especially those second two games. What are you guys trying to do to get those guys accustomed to it and not overwork them, like you said?
Yeah, well, I think it's advantage to us. I think I'm not sure anybody in the country is more equipped than we are. Like one of our spring scrimmages, I think it was 98, going back into April. Every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, we were in the stadium doing our conditioning with the turf well over 130 degrees. And so you have to prep them for that. And it's not only a physical preparation, it's mental preparation, because fatigue will make cowards of all of us. And so we train them. And so we have the benefit of being in the heat a lot. And so for us, I'm all for every one of our games. If it wasn't for our fans, and I don't want our fans to have to deal with it, but I think it's an advantage to us because we live in it every single day.
Coach, lots of new guys from all over. What are some of the core values for this team this year, and what type of culture are you trying to build here for these guys?
Yeah, the good thing is we have 18 new guys that this was technically their first practice. The rest of the team was here during the spring. So we talk about it in winter. You can have some 9 padded kind of OTA workouts. Then you have spring practice. Then the summer you can have some OTA style workouts. And so you get to this point, and it used to be a long time ago where this was truly your first practice. That's not the case for this crew. This is a continuation where we started in the winter, went winter, spring, summer, now we're into fall camp, the last phase being the season, and it's just been a continuation. For us, like what we talk about is like who we want to be, and we're trying to build an identity on our football team. We're on a relentless pursuit of better. That's what we talk about from a culture standpoint. And our guys have bought in. Like, I think that our personnel group and our coaches did a really good job from a character standpoint during that portal window. Are we going to be good enough football-wise? We got a lot of work to do, to be determined on that. We believe in them. But as far as having solid people and guys with high character, not only a moral character but competitive character, I think we've done that.
Any leftover housekeeping from the summer in terms of guys being here that were expected to be here?
No, everybody's here that I think you put out who wasn't here, but everybody else is here, so no late additions or anything like that.
And you're going to have Kenton with you guys pending.
So that's just to be determined. However that plays out. So he's kind of he's a great kid, and I think he's got like a 30-day window here where he can practice. So he's out here. We're being careful how many reps he gets because you're unsure on that.
You had some guys in spring injured a little bit, nicked up at the end. Any updates on them? Are they all clear to go?
Everybody practiced today. Yeah, everybody practiced today. So that's what I was saying with the performance staff. I think a lot of credit to our athletic training staff, Jeff and Jeff Smith and his crew, and then our strength staff as well. So, yeah, we were all hands on deck today.
You've been a head coach several times. What kind of makes a successful first week, especially in a new job like this?
Well, I think you just want to continue to get better. I think the thing that experience gives you is you know how to plan it out. This isn't the first time. These aren't like things we're just throwing up on a grease board. Like, these are tried and true. These are tested, right? And so we have a method of how we want to practice and how we want to get into a really good rhythm. The thing for us here is we're working a lot of red area early on. And I think if you look back at our league in the American Conference, so many games are won by who scores touchdowns, all right? Who scores touchdowns in the red zone. And so we're starting spring practice really because we want to limit their running, because a lot of your soft tissue injuries happen early. So we're trying to take care of that by just working kind of primarily from about the 30-yard line in. But it's a two-edge, or it's a double positive for us, because not only are we saving their legs a little bit, but we're also getting that critical red zone work in. And so I just want to see our guys continue to get better. And then the other thing that I'm looking for is, like, we got to get reps in our schemes, and we got to figure out what we're good at. And then we got to find out who can handle adversity, who's going to continue to compete every single day.
You guys had the number one offense in the country last year. This place it's had some history here with having some good offense. How do you feel about your guys' ability to reprise that and to continue that tradition as you start from practice?
Yeah, I think that, first of all, that you got to educate your players on it. And that's what we did last night in our offensive unit meeting. Kind of intro on what we're going to do is during our orientation, a big part of that is our goal is to be the most entertaining offense in the country. I mean, if you're entertaining, that means you're scoring points, you're creative. We talk about scoring from far. That's the explosive plays. So, but if we're doing that, then we got a chance. And this educating them not only on last year, but all three of Eric's teams really good. Seth had some really high performing offenses. So educating them that this is a tradition. This is what we do. What we do is we score points, we move the ball, and we create explosive plays.
Obviously, a hot topic has been Jaheim White coming in from West Virginia. From you, what have you kind of seen from him after he's kind of progressed throughout that injury throughout spring?
Yeah, he was full till today. We weren't contact. We'll limit him contact-wise once we get into practice. But I think he's got a chance to be special. I think he's got a huge chip on his shoulder. He's going to be hungry. He's an elite player. We got to figure out how we want to use him getting the ball. But for sure, he can be a difference maker for us.
Coach, you mentioned figuring out what this team is good at was a priority in the spring. How much have you guys progressed in that? And what's left to do in fall camp in terms of figuring that out?
Well, I think what you want to do is defensively you want to figure out, okay, what fronts give us the best chance? What pressures give us the best chance? Like what coverage schemes fit our personnel? And then what can our guys handle? Because it's not just the physical, what can they do? Mentally, what can they handle? And so you try to throw a lot at them, in fall camp, especially the first 2 weeks. And then you look at the statistics, you look at the production, you start figuring out, okay, this is what we're good at, this is where we're really going to hang our hat. And you do the same thing on offense. What is our best, that thing that our O-line does, not only in the run game, but in protection? What are the best thing our quarterbacks throw? How can we get our best players the ball? And how do you figure out who your best players are? They're the people that make people miss, and they make plays in space. And so that's what this 2-week period is. What we talk about to our players is you got 14 practices. Everybody's got a chance. We two-spotted a bunch of practice today. Everybody's getting reps. What do you do with those reps? You're either going to prove you're ready to play or you prove that you're not ready to play. And the guys that prove they're ready to play, then after that 14th practice, we'll get into first game prep. Guys that aren't, then we'll get them ready, and hopefully they'll be able to help us down the road.
We're talking to Barker here in a bit. He seems like an interesting guy that's bounced around, been in the league, been in SMU. What have you seen from him as he comes into this program?
Probably as mature of a player that I've coached. It's almost like having an assistant coach. I was kind of joking around with him this morning. He's really intelligent, high EQ and high football intelligence. So emotional intelligence and football intelligence. Been really impressed with him. Very limited until the last week in the spring. Showed some signs had a great. He was one of our our summer awards from our strength staff, and our players voted on that. He won one of those awards. And so I think that tells you kind of how he's thought of.
He's got some experience in the league, having been at East Carolina. Do you think that helps him as he comes into this program, just having succeeded at this level?
Well, I think he had success for sure, and he would have played at SMU, but he got hurt. So I think that's what limited him at SMU. But I think he was a second-team all-conference linebacker. He knows what it looks like. He knows what good football looks like. Coach Harrell and his staff do a great job defensively and got him prepared, and we got to do the same thing. But I'm excited about him, and not only from his ability on the field, but his leadership in the locker room.
Another player that seems to have that leadership is Max Reese. You brought him to media days as well. And what has he kind of shown you so far, especially being one of the guys with a lot of experience on that offense?
Unique for him because he's an older player. This is his 5th year of eligibility, but he's made a huge jump. And a lot of times you don't see guys that are at the end of their career make these big jumps. But if you look at what he's done in the weight room, like big gains, body comp, he's lost a lot of body fat and put on muscle. His movement skills are much improved from when he got here in January. I really believe in him as a person, but I also believe in him as a player. I think he can be a guy that we can get a lot out of, and we can move him around. He can do a lot of things. He knows how to get open versus man coverage. He's a good enough blocker. And then, he's great after the catch. He's a really tough tackle. So excited about him. I think he'll be a real focal point of our offense.
You guys have quite a few 5th years on this team this year. How have you seen their separate experiences coming into the school? How have you seen them progress throughout the summer, and what do you have for their expectations this year?
According to Doug, we got the 2nd oldest team in the country. So y'all check that, all right? But, yeah, I think it's a positive. I think if you look at some teams that have had good success here in the playoff era, it's a lot of older teams. So I think what it enables you to do when you're older, you've got wisdom, you've been through experiences, so there's less lows. They can handle the ebbs and flows, whether it's during fall camp or during a season. They're able to handle those things because they've experienced them before. They're also a really good teacher or mentor for the younger players in our program because they've been through things. They've been through some highs. They've been through some things that didn't go their way. And so I think that's a positive.
I don't know if you saw it or not, but Phil Steele puts out a study every year, a bunch of them.
Mm-hmm.
And
he does a lot.
Yeah, one of those things that he looked at is the amount of homegrown players that each team in college football has, and you guys were dead last, in terms of guys that started here as high school players and that have come all the way through to be continue to be players in the program. What inherent challenges does that present when you're bringing so many guys from so many places?
Well, I think first of all, to be determined because we don't know. It's the first time we've really done it, so I can't speak on experience with that. What I will say is I think the biggest obstacle we have to overcome is connection, and we've been really intentional about it. Now, how do you know that you're a connected team? It's when things don't go right. When everything's going well, it's fine. All right, when you start, some people are playing, some people aren't. You have some adversity, you don't play as well, maybe you lose a game. That's when your connection really gets challenged. And so I think that for us is what we got to continue to develop is that team connection. That stat, I don't know if it matters. I really don't. It's telling of what a roster is. And I think our rosters, and really our coaching staff too, it's one of 3 groups of people. It's guys that were on the team last year that didn't play starring roles. A lot of them were backups. A lot of them were special teams players. But they've got some experience here, but not being in a leader role. Second group is a group that's coming from a lower level coming up. Could be a D2, could be FCS, could be a lower group of 5. And they've been really productive, and they're coming up, and they want to prove they can play at this level. And the next level is guys that were at the P4 level that are coming here because they didn't play as much or they didn't feel as wanted at that level. The common theme, and it's true for the coaches too. Hell, that's what the last one. That's what I am. All right, and so I think the common theme for all of us in this organization is everybody's hungry to prove themselves. And they got a chip on their shoulder, and I'm excited to see it all comes together. It's the first time for me, though.
The group where you kind of have that mix of veterans and young guys as quarterback, what are you kind of seeing from them? I know it's still early.
Yeah, I thought Taven handled himself really well today. I thought Jimerson really flashed. Dida does some really good things. Zai, it's too big. He's learning, so I wouldn't even want to speak on him yet. But I think we've got guys that can win in our league, and the thing for Taven is just continue to build his confidence, because his good throughout his career, whether it was at Indiana or at Central Florida, his good's been really at a high level, and he's got great talent, he's got great skill, and I think Chasten really came into his own in the spring, and then Chris had the injury in the spring, but from an athleticism standpoint, there's nobody more athletic playing the position in the country.
What do you imagine, Coach, are kind of the big things for you to evaluate who the starter is among those couple guys?
Yeah, it's who scores touchdowns. It's a pretty simple deal. Like, that's the thing about all this deal. Like, I don't pick anything. It's usually pretty clear who the starter is going to be, whether it's left tackle, whether it's defensive end, whether it's quarterback, line. It doesn't matter. The production tells you. And it's usually really clear who the guy's going to be.
When do you think you'll know? Is that just something?
I don't ever put a time. Nah, I don't ever put a time. I think we'll name a starter. Like, I don't have any problem doing that. But as far as I try not to put any limitations on it, because it'll play out how it's supposed to play out.
Are there any position battles that you're also kind of keeping an eye out on?
Yeah, I think figuring out who our 5 best O-linemen. I think that who's going to win the starting receiver spot, because I think there's probably 7 or 8 guys that could do it. Who's going to jump up and be the second running back? I think that's going to be intriguing. I think who's going to be our third tight end. That's going to be an intriguing battle. D-line, we got a ton of bodies playing end, 3 technique, and nose. Like, who's going to get in the 2 deep? How's that going to play out? I think at linebacker, we've got 4 guys. Can a 5th guy get in there? And then I think too is like, who our 3rd and 4th corners are going to be, and then we've got a safety spot. Brandon Jones has really played at a high level. Who's going to start opposite him? I think there's a couple different guys. Tayce Moore, Bryce Garza. There's some different guys in that mix. There's a couple other ones too that are in that mix. Like, I think those are some interesting battles as we get going.
Last question.
That's what I got.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all. Yeah, appreciate y'all being here.